Hi everyone. So in today's video, I wanted to examine a little deeper about terrorist attacks, the ISIS, the Al-Qaeda's, all these people that we like to call extreme fundamentalist and just be a little dismissive of them. But we don't really want to sit and really think and examine what they're saying. I'm going to go a little deeper in this because I wanted you to sit and examine actually, like, why are we so dismissive of them? Because we think, oh my God, like what a horrific thing they're doing. Of course, it's not the real Islam. We actually have the real Islam. We know what the real Islam is. And it's a religion of peace, as we have been, whitewashed and told. But why don't we actually look at, what are they believing? What are they actually saying? What are they doing? Is it really that far off from the true Islam, the true founders of the tribal religious founders, with their tribal chief god, Allah? Is it really that far? No, because now in today's time, the Islam that we have is a very rosy, whitewash, infused with a lot of love over the years from our spirituality that we kind of forgotten the actual religion as it was practiced and the actual spirituality that was at that time. So if Muhammad ran away from Mecca with a bunch of his followers, left everything behind, went to Medina, and they had to start over again. And again, you can start to see the we see the toxic charity playing out now. They're forced to sort of share, their food, their housing, give whatever they have and just give it up, some of it, even to this extent of giving up some wives because some of these men didn't have wives. Anyway, so back to the whole idea of when you really examine Muhammad and his idea of God and religion, most people in today's spiritual world, in today's time, spiritual level, is that we don't believe in forcing God on anybody, right? God doesn't really force himself on anybody, actually. You could forget him, not call on him, be open to his intuitions and whispers or source knowledge, or not. It's still, your life still moves on. You're not really, being shaken and waken up by God, like, hey, listen to me. We don't really have that. But somehow in Islam, that's kind of what it is. You're really forced Allah on you. There's really a lot of forcing of that. And many people might say that's not true, but is it? That's the whole religion. That's the whole history. We have a whole man who really inserted himself into the equation, especially, of religion and spirituality. Like, there is an Allah, and I, Muhammad, do not forget about me. Muhammad is the final prophet, is the true prophet. Like, you really need a lot of him, to gain access to this spiritual Allah. Because there is no Allah without Muhammad, and there's no Muhammad, without Allah. So they're just kind of like, he made sure that came as a package deal. So now we have this whole spirituality, tribal chieftain God forced upon you. And what does this God tell you? Like, look at the spirituality level. This is what this God tells you is it's okay to loot caravans, of whoever's coming, Quraysh or anybody really, nearby tribes, unrelated tribes that are nearby that have, things that you want, commodities, camels, land, money, even women sometimes. Whatever they have nearby, you can go and get access to it. So all you really need is to say that they are now the other. They are the other people, the enemy or whatever, they're not with us. So we are completely within our limits to go and just attack them, take whatever they have, whatever is that's just now all for us. So I want you to think about it. So we have Muhammad, who was sort of an intern, a trainee. Literally, that's the trade. He was a merchant, a tajir, that worked for Khadija on the behest, on the recommendation, or whatever you want to call it, groveling of his uncles to get him to do something. And that was really his whole teaching career trade. And here he has this perfect chance to go rebuild community. Like he could have also been a tajir. He could have also worked and done some merchant something, trained his people to do that. Some respectable work, really humble themselves, work for the Jews. They had caravans going. If you really, all you knew was to fight, you could be their security guards, protect them. But here he conveniently says, you know what, I'm going to take this. God said, my spirituality, God said to me that I'm okay to go and loot people and kill if I need to, because now it's all open for me. I'm like a free agent here of God. Like God has given me his hand. I'm like, an open attacker, terrorist attacker, really. Who is the original terrorist attacker here? Him. Are you really surprised by ISIS and Daesh and all these other al-Qaedas? They're really literally following in the footsteps exactly of your leader, which is Muhammad. He did the same exact things. Now you want to say, no, those were the really bad people, and like we all know the truth and everything, but they're following the same blueprint. All these, they're dictators, countries, all these other bad Muslims, they're just a bad name, and here they're really following God's word, doing God's work by actually going and doing exactly that. They're looting, they're out to get you, they're in thugs and like gangs, and they work together, and they are within their rights and limits of this religion. Next aspect, which is a little scary and sad, I have to say, it's just disturbing, because I didn't really think about these things either when I was, in university. It was just a simple dismissal of like, well, these are not really the real Muslims, and they've just taken and twisted the verses, and they've taken up the wrong translation, and they're just angry, and they have their own agenda. But wasn't that Muhammad had an agenda too? That was his agenda. He went, he looted caravans, he stole, and eventually he killed all these tribes, the Jews and everyone, captured their women. That's exactly what he did. And he said that it is within his rights to do that because they are bad people. Quraysh, his own tribe, his own, extended community, people who supported him, who once raised him, everything, gave him space to preach, allowed his preaching, his nonsense for a long time. Yeah, he did exactly that. So are these terrorist groups really wrong? No, they're not really wrong. They're actually following the blueprint. In fact, who's to say that your Islam is really not wrong? Like, maybe your Islam is really the fluff version? And I hate to say it, but like, if you were left to argue with, one of these people, followers of ISIS or some other these groups, and you're left to argue and debate, like, do you really think you would be able to say much? Would you really have even some basic rights? Who would you be calling for help? You wouldn't be calling Allah. Who would you be actually turning to help? You'd probably be turning to your governments again and just really, getting some sort of sense, because really this Islam is not going to save you. And for a lot of people who think that, the Muslims are attacking all these white girls or like kafirs or Christians or Jews, they're doing it specifically because they think they are within their rights. In fact, even Muslim women, you thought they like had some better idea for Muslim women. No, they don't. It's a very, very tribal mentality. Maybe just their family. The other Muslims are all open targets, right? So yes, they will actually lure and try to get all these people to come and join their mission. As you might not be aware, but there was a period a couple of years ago in Syria and Turkey where they were collecting their army, and it was an open invitation. So all these naive young boys and girls, like in the Western countries actually, who were very much inspired by religion and wanted this spirituality, and who actually just followed exactly word to word for the religion. A lot of our moms and dads would actually encourage you to be spiritual, but once they saw you getting a little off track from your school or studies, or like, just getting too much and like, here, I'm ready to go fight in Palestine and like go fight some more, they'll just like, like shut up and put that down and like get back to your school. They're not going to entertain that, Religion was okay as long as it was just, left for your masjid and like your weekend or whatever, it was, and making you a good person, really. That's what they really wanted from religion. They didn't want you to go and like give up your life and go and fight some war. That's not what they're here for. And that's why most people will not go to that extent. But if you follow the blueprint of 7th century Islam, that is exactly what it was. It asked you to give up everything, leave everything, and just go fight some random wars. So yes, back to the point of like there were girls and boys who went and foolishly thought they were going to live out some Islamic dream life and got caught in a lot of this nonsense web and had the most horrific, heinous things happen to them. So there are a lot of documentaries about that. I just want to let you know that if you thought it was just, other women, Christian, no, they attack everybody, and everyone is an open target. Women is really just for one purpose, as if you don't know yet in Islam. It's all these other pink hijabis who are sitting here and like trying to rewrite and reframe and give you this beautiful polished version of verses. This is the Islam they get to, practice now, which is fine. You can go and practice like a whole bubbly, cotton candy version of it. But that's not really what the 7th century, the actual verses, the actual traditions, the actual history will point out for you. The turning point came when the verse was brought down that people who spread fitna, now we are here with this ambiguous word fitna, anything that basically doesn't go or doesn't sit well with, Muhammad or his goal or his agenda, is now going to be considered an enemy, and they're open targets for killing. So, I think Islam would be like a really interesting video game from all these people who have the seeds of violence and hatred and just like, fighting. It really does recruit a lot of these type of mentalities. So you'll see that it's very easy for all these why aren't these fundamentalists like sitting in some mountain, right? Like that's the true Islam. There are some fundamentalists that sit and believe and preach nonviolence in some mountain, leaving all luxury comforts. That's not what they do. They like to exert a lot of violence because that's what Muhammad did. They're okay with living in bare minimum conditions, but they don't usually do that. They would like to keep the suckers, who are following them. But the true leaders, they like to live in power and a lot of luxury and a lot of access to women. So they will actually go and perform exactly the same attacks, the same agenda, and the same thing, because that's where they see themselves. The rest of you, lot of you are out here, going to fight the wars, lose your future careers, whatever, your own happiness, because you're playing along this video game idea mentality of thugs and wars. You've seen that in Muhammad allows completely massacring the men and the tribes of other people, groups of other people who weren't like aligned or were a fitna or were basically a little different than his teachings or not exactly his teachings. So they were absolutely open target. You would think Muhammad would have a lot of compassion and a lot of extended rights towards, the Jews, which he really felt were close to what his original teaching was. They weren't worshiping, some idols like the Quraysh, which were his relatives. But even then, you don't see that compassion or that extreme, brotherliness or brotherhood. And the people exactly, who are not yours, who are not your tribes, are open target, open enemy. You're allowed to loot them, kill them, massacre them. And the women are the easiest target. So children as well, they're not really adopted. They're just taken in for more labor work and more manpower, really, to support you and your tribe. I just think that, Muhammad really could have simply done a much different route of gaining wealth or building up his, being an actual representation and symbol of how spirituality, was to live, grow his city into a beautiful city. But, the history is very ugly otherwise. That's not how it happened. And most Muslims kind of think that was like a one-off incident. But here we have all these people and groups reliving that experience, wanting to do the same blueprint, following that whole method. And here they're just like, no, that's not the real Islam. That's not real Islam. We are told like we have to live in peace, but completely ignore all these verses and blueprints and be like, well, where are these people getting it from? Are they really wrong? Have you sat and tried to look at it from their point of view? You know, a lot of them, when they do sit and read it, I think they just get more inspired and actually want to go ahead and join. They're like, well, actually, this is what the real Islam says. This is really what the true religion and Muhammad really would have wanted us to do. With that, I'm going to leave you here to think about really what kind of role models are these people following, the stories that they listen to, how have they actually impacted, what have they grown up listening to. It's exactly the same things, and they've taken it maybe in a way that you're a little surprised. And I wanted to point out that, you know, when people have the idea of violence and misogyny and everything, it's even more attractive to those people because it kind of is in them. They are ingrained with it. They don't really want to sit and examine it. So it really does attract a lot of those people and who are influenced and want, you know, to express that side or those characteristics. As you know, power really reveals a lot about a person. As any other method like money, wealth, power, influence, reveals a lot about a person. So when you see Muhammad, what it revealed about him and his religion, is it really surprising to see that when people take religion and they want to express it, what it reveals about them, how they like to force God, force spirituality, force, you know, what kind of God are they envisioning, and what kind of spiritual teachings they envision that he has, this God, this spiritual, all-loving creator has for you. So I'm going to end this video here, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.